Good evening. This is Martin Boelter, and this is video number 14 of our little video series from chapters of the book An American Experience by Martin Boelter, which is me. And today's chapter is How Other Races Look Alike, page 198. Now, let me start with a little anecdote on this subject. I saw, I don't know where I saw it on some channel on some TV, and it had an interview in it with Samuel L. Jackson, and he was interviewed about one of his film projects or whatever have you, and the interviewer at the end of the interview congratulated him on a part which he supposedly did in some movie or some other part of the thing. And Jackson goes, in what? In who? What did I do? And stuff. And so he didn't know what the guy was talking about. Oh, the guy was talking about, the other guy tried to explain to him, oh, the blah 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 project. He mentioned the project, and he said that wasn't me. And the Jackson said, oh, but I understand. We all look alike. And this interviewer, this guy, he was totally embarrassed. He was totally out of it and stuff like that, because he just mixed him up with another black guy who did actually this project he was referring to. He was referring to, and that kind of led me to my own experience on this subject. When I came here to Lawton, Oklahoma, and started working in the prison, that was a big subject, because even though I am from Berlin and we had a lot of black people, Hispanic people, Asian guys and girls, and all sorts of kind of races. I mean, it's a big melting pot. But I never worked in a place or were exposed to such a high number of people of one race, except of course white race, where I come from, Germany, and it's mainly white. So all of a sudden I worked in an environment where I had to deal, let's see, a housing unit had like 300 and something people, and let's say out of that 150 were black. So I was never exposed to 150 black people in one spot, which I ideally called by name. Hey, Mr. Jackson, hey, Mr. Johnson, hey, Mr. Smith, hey, Mr. whatever have you, do this, or go there, go there, here, and stuff like that. So I had my struggles in identifying the individuals and their names. It might have been a personal thing. I might not be the greatest with faces and names and stuff like that, but be that as it may, personal thing or not, you do hear that sometimes, and sometimes it happens. If you are not exposed to other races on a regular basis and different faces of other races, then you just can't get accustomed to how other races look like. It is simple. He was totally embarrassed, this interviewer, and I was standing there at that prison, and these guys very often told me too, oh, you don't remember my name? I say, no, well, I understand, we all look alike. They used it as kind of a race card. And of course, in their perspective, it was, and in fact, it is, but it's put out to be a negative thing, when I don't think it is such a negative thing. It is just a natural occurrence between different races. Another example on that was when I was a tour bus driver in Europe, and I drove around a lot of groups from China, a lot of groups from Japan, and other places. Some in rare occasions, India I think was one, but mainly it was due to the contracts my boss had. Mainly it was Chinese people and Japanese people. So, but I tell you, even though I dealt with Chinese or Asian people or Asian looking people in Berlin, because we have all sorts of kinds of races, I wasn't exposed to 55 Chinese people of roughly the same age, more or less, maybe 10 years difference from the youngest to the oldest, and so on and so forth, making vacation in Europe. I just was never exposed to that. So I had my struggles and problems identifying their faces, and not to even start talking about names. Who, if you don't use that name on a daily basis, can pronounce Chinese names or even read Chinese names? I can't. And so we had a tour guide on the bus, who speaks English and who speaks, of course, Chinese in this case, and who translates. And sometimes I couldn't differentiate between her and guests on the tour bus. I only could tell that it was her at the beginning because she spoke to me in English and she spoke to me about tour related issues. Next time we need to go there, and then we need to make a stop there and pay there and make a bathroom break there, or whatever have you. So it's supposed to be embarrassing, but I tell you, it's really not. And I would like to say or convey the message: don't let other people tell you that this is an embarrassing thing, because it is not. If you are not exposed to other races, you have problems identifying people in these other races. It is a very natural thing to me. I never was opposed to 200 black people at one point, or even over a certain period of time in one spot in Berlin where I come from, or to Chinese people or to Hispanic people or whatever have you. It doesn't really matter what the relationship is, but it tells you also another thing, which brings me to the whole message of the book. The whole message of the book basically is bringing different cultures together. Or as it says in the back, embrace diversity, learn from others, and be anxious what foreign cultures can offer. Look, learn, understand. So the whole book basically, even though it got some weird and wild chapters, is basically about promoting the diversity, promoting the living together of other cultures, okay? And don't let nobody tell you that it is a bad thing that you cannot identify other races. In a lineup of like 20 people, you get to be told one name of that person within that group, and come back an hour later supposed to be remembering that, or even identifying this individual in this group of 30 people. If you don't deal with other races and cultures like that, you can't, or at least I couldn't. I don't know if this is a personal crazy thing of mine, or if somebody else might make that experience. But this interviewer in the first story was thoroughly embarrassed about his inability to differentiate Mr. Jackson from whoever the other guy was who actually did that piece he was commenting about. But I say it's a natural thing, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. You get used to it. Of course, if you expose yourself to other cultures and races, then you will get used to it. If you never do, like I did see and observe some communities in the area where I live, 200-mile radius, then you never will. And you always will have problem in, dealing with other races and cultures. But I tell you, it's worthwhile, because you can really lose nothing, and it's just part of life. This is a planet inhabited by whatever number of races and cultures, and we all need to live together. Simple as that. But even though if you are not at a point where you accept all sorts and kinds of races and cultures in your community, in your family, and if you are just not at this point for whatever reason, just get there. Just try it. Tip your finger into that big pool of cultures and races and see what you can get out of it. That's all. Anyway, just a funny story, and a story which I'm sure many people can relate to, and something which shouldn't be embarrassing, because if anything is embarrassing actually, is only the fact that you didn't expose yourself to other races and cultures. And I don't know if this is really embarrassing, because as I said before, I came from Berlin, one of the biggest melting pots of cultures and races, and I had my struggles and issues and problems. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, period. If you can't differentiate certain individuals from other races and cultures, then you just can't. Then you just have to learn it, just like anything else you learn. And that's it. How different races look alike.